He was 19 when they called him a killer. By 8:37 p.m. that night, his name, his freedom, and his future were already gone. The police said they had their man. The prosecutor said it was an open and shut case. The jury took less than 3 hours to agree. 25 years, 25 birthdays behind bars, for a crime he did not commit. From the very first day, he screamed the same words, "I'm innocent." But nobody listened. Not the cops, not the lawyers, not even the judge. Until one night, nearly a quarter of a century later, a single piece of evidence appeared. Something so small, so forgotten, that it should have freed him years earlier. This is the true story of how an innocent man lost 25 years of his life, and the one thing that finally set him free. His name was Daniel Reeves, 19 years old, born and raised in a small town outside Indianapolis, Indiana. The kind of place where everyone knows everyone. Friday night football games pack the stands and nothing exciting ever really happens. Daniel lived with his mother, Patricia, in a modest 2-bedroom house on Maple Street. His father had left when Daniel was 8. Patricia worked as a nurse at the local hospital, pulling double shifts to keep the lights on and food on the table. Daniel was the oldest of 3. He had a younger brother, Tommy, who was 15, and a little sister, Shayla, who was 12. Daniel took his role as the man of the house seriously. He helped with homework, made sure his siblings got to school on time, fixed things around the house when they broke. Daniel worked at Mike's auto repair on the edge of town. He'd been there since he was 17, apprenticing as a mechanic. Mike Patterson, the owner, was a gruff man in his 50s who didn't talk much but trusted Daniel. He'd given Daniel a chance when no one else would. Daniel was good with his hands. He could diagnose an engine problem by sound alone. He had dreams of opening his own shop one day, maybe expanding into custom cars. He'd sketched designs in a notebook he kept in his locker at work. On weekends, Daniel played basketball at the community center with his friends. He wasn't the best player, but he loved the game. His best friend since middle school was a guy named Eric Morrison. They'd grown up together, shared everything, talked about moving to Indianapolis together someday, getting an apartment, starting fresh. Daniel had a girlfriend too. Her name was Kendra Williams. They'd been dating for 2 years. She was studying nursing at the community college, hoping to follow in Patricia's footsteps. Daniel and Kendra talked about getting engaged, maybe getting married once she graduated. His favorite place was his mother's backyard. There was an old oak tree with a tire swing Daniel's father had hung before he left. Daniel would sit under that tree on warm evenings, listening to music, thinking about the future. He worried about money, about whether he'd ever make enough to help his mom retire, about whether he was good enough for Kendra, about whether his siblings would be okay. But he was proud too, proud of his job, proud of his family, proud that despite everything, he was making it work. On the night of September 14, 1998, Daniel clocked out of work at 6:30 p.m. He was tired. His hands were stained with grease. He'd spent the day replacing a transmission on a Chevy pickup. He said goodnight to Mike, walked to his beat-up 1989 Ford Taurus in the parking lot, and drove home. He had no idea that by 8:37 p.m. that night, his entire life would be over. 3 miles away at a gas station convenience store called Quick Mart on Highway 52, something terrible was happening. At 8:12 p.m., a man in a black hoodie and ski mask walked into the store. The clerk behind the counter was a 52-year-old man named Robert Hayes. He'd worked there for 15 years. Quiet guy, kept to himself. The man in the mask pulled out a gun, a small revolver, demanded cash from the register. Robert didn't argue. He opened the register, started pulling out bills. His hands were shaking. Then something went wrong. Another customer walked in, a woman in her 30s. She screamed when she saw the gun. The masked man panicked, turned, fired. The bullet hit Robert Hayes in the chest. He collapsed behind the counter. The woman ran. The masked man grabbed what cash he could and fled. By the time the woman called 911 from her car, the shooter was gone. Robert Hayes died in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. The entire robbery lasted less than 90 seconds. The shooter got away with $342. The town was in shock. This was the first murder in 12 years. The police were under immense pressure to solve it fast. The store had a security camera, but the footage was grainy. The shooter's face was covered. All they could tell was approximate height, build, and clothing. Black hoodie, dark jeans, white sneakers. The woman who witnessed the shooting gave a description. Young, maybe late teens, early 20s, black male, about 6 feet tall. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Detectives canvassed the area, interviewed everyone who'd been near the gas station that night. They were desperate for a lead. Then they got one. An anonymous tip called into the police hotline 2 days after the murder. The caller said, "I know who did it. It was Daniel Reeves. Lives over on Maple Street. I saw him around there that night." The tip was uncorroborated. No name, no details, just a voice on the phone. But it was enough to put Daniel on the police radar. Detectives pulled Daniel's DMV photo, compared it to the security footage. The build was similar. The height matched. Daniel was 19, black, lived in town. It wasn't evidence, but to the detectives under pressure to close the case, it was a lead. By the time they knocked on Daniel's door, the story about him was already written. They came for Daniel at 6:15 a.m. on September 18th, 4 days after the murder. Daniel was asleep in his bedroom when he heard pounding on the front door. His mother answered. Detectives pushed past her, showed a warrant, and went straight to Daniel's room. "Daniel Reeves, you're under arrest for the murder of Robert Hayes." Daniel sat up confused. "What? I don't even know who that is." They cuffed him in front of his mother and siblings. Patricia was crying, asking what was happening. Tommy and Shayla stood in the hallway, terrified. Neighbors came out onto their porches, watching as police walked Daniel to a squad car in handcuffs. At the station, they put Daniel in an interrogation room. He sat there for 2 hours before anyone came in. Finally, 2 detectives entered. Detective Harris and Detective Coleman, both white, both in their 40s, both convinced they had their man. "Daniel, we know you did it," Detective Harris said, sitting across from him. "We have witnesses. We have evidence. The best thing you can do right now is tell us the truth." Daniel's voice shook. "I didn't do anything. I was at home that night. I left work at 6:30. I went home. I was with my family." "Your family's gonna lie for you," Detective Coleman said. "We need the truth." "I'm telling you the truth." They went in circles for hours. The detectives showed him the security footage. "That's you, isn't it?" "No, I've never even been to that gas station." "We have someone who says they saw you there." "They're lying, I wasn't there." "If you just admit it, the judge will go easier on you. If you make us go to trial, you're looking at life." Daniel felt his chest tightening. He'd never been in trouble before, never been arrested, never even had a speeding ticket. "I want a lawyer," he finally said. The detectives looked at each other, stood up. "All right, you want to play it that way? Fine, but you're making a mistake." They left him alone in that room for another 3 hours. By the time they took him to a holding cell, Daniel realized no one believed him. Daniel's trial began 5 months later, in February 1999. He was assigned a public defender named Gerald Watkins, mid-50s, overworked, handling 40 cases at once. Gerald met with Daniel twice before the trial, 30 minutes each time. He told Daniel the evidence was weak, but juries were unpredictable. "They want someone to pay for this," Gerald said, "and right now, that someone is you." The prosecutor was a woman named Linda Garrett, sharp, ambitious. She'd never lost a murder case. In her opening statement, she painted a simple story. Daniel Reeves needed money. He walked into that Quick Mart with a gun. He demanded cash. When Robert Hayes resisted, Daniel Reeves shot him in cold blood. This is not a complicated case. This is murder. The evidence she presented was thin, but she presented it with confidence. The woman who witnessed the shooting testified, "I saw a young black man, maybe 6 feet tall, wearing a black hoodie." "Can you identify the man in this courtroom?" Linda asked. The woman hesitated, looked at Daniel. "I think I think that's him. You think? Or you know? I know. But on cross-examination, Gerald asked, how long did you see this person? Maybe 5 seconds. And the lighting? It was dark. And you were terrified, correct? Yes. So you're basing your identification on a 5-second glance in the dark while you were terrified? Yes. It should have been enough to create reasonable doubt. But Linda was good. She moved on quickly. The prosecution showed the grainy security footage, froze it on the shooter's build, compared it to Daniel's height and build. Similar, isn't it? Linda said. No DNA evidence, no fingerprints, no murder weapon. Nothing concrete linking Daniel to the scene. But Linda told a story, a convincing story, a story the jury wanted to believe. Gerald Watkins did his best. He argued that the eyewitness was unreliable, that the anonymous tip was uncorroborated, that Daniel had an alibi. He was home with his family. But Patricia's testimony was dismissed as a mother protecting her son. Tommy and Shayla were too young to be credible. Gerald didn't have the resources to hire expert witnesses, didn't have time to investigate alternative suspects. He was one man against a system with unlimited resources. The jury deliberated for 2 hours and 47 minutes. When they returned, the foreman stood. We find the defendant, Daniel Reeves, guilty of murder in the first degree. Patricia screamed. Kendra buried her face in her hands. Tommy and Shayla sat frozen. Daniel stared straight ahead, his hands shaking. The judge set sentencing for 2 weeks later. At sentencing, the judge looked down at Daniel. Mr. Reeves, you have been found guilty of taking the life of Robert Hayes, a man who was simply doing his job. I sentence you to 25 years to life in state prison. 25 years. Daniel was 19 years old. By the time he'd be eligible for parole, he'd be 44. Daniel was transferred to Wabash Valley Correctional Facility, a maximum security prison in southern Indiana. His first night in prison, Daniel lay on a thin mattress in a cell barely bigger than a closet. His cellmate was a man named Leon, serving 15 years for armed robbery. Leon looked at Daniel. How old are you? 19. First time? Daniel nodded. You'll learn. Keep your head down. Don't trust anyone. And don't talk about your case. Daniel stared at the ceiling. The sounds were overwhelming. Doors slamming, men shouting, guards yelling. He didn't sleep. Over the weeks and months, Daniel learned how to survive, how to move, how to talk, how to avoid trouble. He worked in the prison laundry, stood for count 3 times a day, ate in the cafeteria at assigned times, walked the yard when allowed. But inside he was screaming. He was innocent, and no one cared. Daniel spent every free hour in the prison library. He read law books, studied appeals, wrote letters to lawyers, innocence organizations, anyone who might listen. Most letters went unanswered. 6 months in, Daniel got into his first fight. Another inmate accused him of looking at him wrong, swung at Daniel. Daniel fought back. Guards broke it up. Both men got 2 weeks in solitary. Solitary was hell. 23 hours a day in a cell barely bigger than a bathroom. 1 hour out in a cage. No human contact. Daniel came out different, harder, quieter. The years blurred together. Daniel turned 20, 25, 30, 35. His hair grew out. He got tattoos. His body changed from working out in the yard. His face hardened. His mother visited once a month at first, then every few months, then a few times a year. She was getting older. The drive was hard on her. Tommy and Shayla grew up. Tommy graduated high school, got a job, got married. Shayla went to college. Daniel watched his family move on without him through glass partitions and phone calls. Kendra visited twice, then stopped. She moved on, got married to someone else. In year 12, Daniel met another inmate named Marcus. Marcus was serving 20 years for manslaughter. He'd killed someone in a bar fight, but Marcus listened to Daniel's story, and he believed him. You got to keep fighting, Marcus said. Don't give up. Daniel kept writing, kept appealing, kept screaming into the void that he was innocent. By year 20, he'd written over 300 letters, filed 8 appeals, all denied. He watched whole years disappear, one visitation at a time. In 2023, 25 years after his conviction, Daniel got a letter. It was from an organization called the Midwest Innocence Project. A lawyer named Sarah Chen had reviewed his case. She'd found something. Sarah had been working on wrongful conviction cases for 10 years. She'd helped free 12 people. Daniel's case had been flagged by a volunteer who noticed inconsistencies in the trial record. Sarah requested the original case files, spent 6 months reviewing everything, and she found it. At the crime scene in 1998, police had collected a black hoodie left behind by the shooter. It had been logged into evidence but never tested for DNA. In 1998, DNA testing was expensive. The prosecution didn't think it was necessary because they already had their guy. But Sarah requested the hoodie be tested with modern DNA technology. The results came back 3 months later. The DNA on the hoodie did not match Daniel Reeves. It matched someone else, a man named Terrence Wallace, 39 years old, currently serving time in the same prison as Daniel for armed robbery. Sarah dug deeper, found that Terrence had been questioned about the Quick Mart robbery in 1998, but released. No one followed up. She found that Terrence matched the description even more closely than Daniel. He lived 2 blocks from the Quick Mart, had a history of armed robbery, but police had already arrested Daniel. They didn't look any further. Sarah filed a motion for a new trial based on new DNA evidence. The hearing was set for October 2023. Daniel sat in the courtroom for the first time in 25 years. His hair was gray, his face lined. He looked nothing like the 19-year-old boy who'd been convicted. Sarah presented the DNA evidence, showed how it excluded Daniel, showed how it matched Terrence Wallace. She also presented a new witness, someone who'd known Terrence in 1998 and said Terrence had bragged about the Quick Mart robbery, but no one believed him because the police had already arrested someone. The prosecutor who'd convicted Daniel was long retired. The new prosecutor looked at the evidence and didn't fight it. The state concedes that this evidence creates reasonable doubt. We do not oppose the motion. The judge reviewed the DNA report, the confession, the timeline. Mr. Reeves, based on the new evidence presented, I am vacating your conviction and ordering your immediate release. I am deeply sorry for the injustice you have suffered. Daniel couldn't breathe. 25 years. And just like that, it was over. They processed him out, gave him a check for $300, a set of civilian clothes, a bus ticket. On October 17th, 2023 at 10:32 a.m., Daniel Reeves walked out of Wabash Valley Correctional Facility, a free man. The sun was so bright it hurt his eyes. He stood outside the gates, breathing fresh air that didn't smell like concrete and bodies. His mother was waiting. She was 71 now, gray-haired, frail, but she was there. They hugged. She sobbed. Daniel held her, tears streaming down his face. Tommy and Shayla were there too, grown adults now, strangers and family all at once. The world had changed. Everyone had smartphones. Cars looked different. The music was different. Even the money looked different. Daniel sat in the back seat of his mother's car, staring out the window like a child. Everything felt wrong and right at the same time. He felt relief, anger, confusion, gratitude, trauma. 25 years. Gone. Stolen. Never coming back. Daniel is 44 years old. He should be in the prime of his life. Instead, he's learning how to live in a world he doesn't recognize. He never got to finish his apprenticeship, never opened his own shop, never married Kendra, never had kids. His mother is elderly. His siblings are middle-aged. A quarter century of their lives happened without him. The state of Indiana offered him compensation, $100,000, $4,000 for every year he spent in prison. No apology from the police, no apology from the prosecutor. Just a check and a, "We're sorry this happened." Daniel is in therapy now, trying to process the trauma, trying to rebuild a life from nothing. Terrence Wallace was charged with the murder of Robert Hayes. He pleaded guilty, got 25 years, the same sentence Daniel served for a crime he didn't commit. Daniel stands in his mother's backyard now, under the same oak tree where he used to sit as a teenager. The tire swing is still there, weathered and old. He pushes it gently, watching it sway. 25 years stolen. Lost youth, lost chances, lost time with family. Do you think this was justice? If this happened to you, could you ever forgive the system that took 25 years of your life? If you want more true stories of injustice and second chances, subscribe and stay with us. The next story might change how you see the justice system forever.